Moving on to my first story for today, the game called Wanderstop. Did you love the Stanley Parable? Because I just know how famous the game is. I don't know too much beyond that. Well, one of the developers, Davey Reedon, is making a cozy game. And I know, according to YouTube Analytics, you guys are looking for like what are the upcoming cozy games for 2025. And there's a lot of articles. There's a lot of games coming out this year. I decided to choose this one just because it looks nice. It has lots of purples and greens and whites and very bright colors. Reminds me of Disney's Dreamlight Valley. And I just realized after playing Coral Island, I don't want to go back to playing like pixel art, cozy, relaxing games, which is why I chose Wanderstop. So it's coming out in less than 2 months. I would have probably played this if I wasn't playing Avowed, because again, this is coming out in March. And I imagine Avowed, given that I play an hour a day and sometimes not on the weekends, is probably going to take me longer than 2 months to finish. So I can't play anything in March. Um, as of the time of me researching the story, there's no price at the moment. It sort of reminds me of a game like Potionomics, right? And that's a game where, you know, I guess sort of similar to Stardew Valley or Coral Island, you go to a place like, hey, you're now in charge of running this business. And Potionomics, you were running a potion shop. In Wanderstop, you're making tea for people. And if you're looking at the video, it has sort of like elaborate mechanism of making tea. And of course, with making tea, you can imagine the connecting mechanics of going out into the wild, collecting herbs and spices and that sort of stuff. And they also mention like an interesting fact: you're trying to make the right tea for the right person. So there was like a story game like we were like a bartender, and they had like a sort of like a similar thing, making the right drink for the right person, right? So they sort of emphasize the dialogue here, where speaking to someone like, okay, this person is stressed, or this person is angry, or this person is blah blah. He probably needs to have some chamomile tea for sleeping or something like that. Whatever the equivalent is in game for this sort of stuff. And of course, there's the usual stuff where, you run a store, right? You get to decorate it, you get to unlock furniture, you get to put stuff here, there, and everywhere. So it's very much similar to that sort of way. And there's also an underlying question as well, right? Is this person who's running this store, this shop in Wonderstop, right? Um, is used to be a warrior, right? And the question is, how do you be something else if all you've ever been in life is one thing, right? It's that's if you go all the way down to the bottom of the Steam page, they talk about this. And I thought that was an interesting question, right? Given where the world is heading, I mean, given that, sorry to go negative, right? Is that they say like 40% of employees said they're going to downsize their workforces by 2030 because there's going to have AI agents to run it. Meta even said they're going to get rid of mid-level engineers and have AI do all mid-level engineer coding. I mean, it's like 70,000 people, right? That's terrible. But so basically, we're all going to come to a point of like, if you've always been a teacher, how do you be something else? If you've always been an engineer, how do you be something else? If you've always been, you know, blah, 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 how do you be something else? And this is like an interesting sort of philosophical point that this game is trying to address. Um, I think it's going to be interesting. I think out of all these sort of cozy games that I looked at for the first few months of this year, this is probably the one that I think is going to be give us the most surprises in terms of the way what you're doing right might break out of the mold of go to a farm, raise some animals, make money, get married, have kids, right? Like, might do something different. Fingers crossed, hopefully. There's not too much details online in terms of trailers, in terms of information, of pricing, of extra DLC content, what's going to happen. We don't know that much, even though the game's coming out in quite soon. So we'll have to see.